Okay, this is Sue, Dave, and Shane, and we just spent a week in the Grand Canyon, and we're just going to review where we've been and what we've done. So we started at Grandview Point, and does somebody want to talk about?
Well, we did a 3-mile hike down, the whole way down Grandview, all the way down to Horseshoe Mesa. It was a long, steep hike with some exposure, but manageable. We explored Horseshoe Mesa a little wee bit, and then we continued on down the trail towards Cottonwood Creek, which ran to the west. This too was a 1.5-mile stretch of trail that we anticipated being a moderate hike and turned out to be more of a difficult one to all of us, with a lot of steep gravelly trails, a lot of exposure, but we got to a really beautiful campsite right at Cottonwood Creek under
It
a
was
huge cottonwood
like
tree.
a 4.5 mile, the longest 4.5 miles ever.
Yes.
And once we got to Horseshoe Mesa, we just had like 1.5 miles left to go, and we didn't realize that it was all downhill over big boulders and rocks, and it was really rough. It was a hard hike.
And it was a very hot, sunny, dry day with little winds, so we were beat till we hit our nice camp at Cottonwood Creek under the huge cottonwood tree.
And we camped there for 2 nights. So the second day, while we were at Cottonwood Creek, where did we head from there?
We headed west on the East Tonto Trail, and we went approximately 4 to 5 miles out. And
We think we probably went off the map on this one, right?
yeah, over towards Grapevine area. And it was a nice, fairly level hike with a lot of beautiful scenery along the way. We encountered a few showers.
Was that the
and
day
some
that it
passing
rained pretty hard?
clouds. I don't remember, but I know we had some clouds, which we welcomed, and some sun. And then we just did an out and back hike, and we came back and returned to our camp. And I think we were home in time to take a siesta.
Right. And then we should probably mention that, like, the evening entertainment, we had nearly a full moon the beginning of the week, and so Dave had some apps that helped us identify stars.
Yes.
And then the highlight was the scorpion hunt, and so we had, what was that? Is that an ultraviolet light?
Yes, an ultraviolet LED.
And we were just shining it on the rocks and stuff, trying to find scorpions, which we didn't find. Although we did see one earlier at the old miners' camp on Horseshoe Mesa, one of the little more dangerous scorpions, which just happened to be there. So 2 nights at Cottonwood Creek, and the water at Cottonwood Creek was good water.
Good water.
So
The
nice
Sawyer
creek.
filters worked well.
Yep. Okay, and then that brings us to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yes.
Tuesday we left Cottonwood.
We headed on northeast on the East Tonto Trail. And on this day we ended up doing a 5.5-mile hike along East Tonto and headed on south down towards a campsite on Hance Creek.
Down that
And
little
that's our
spot. And that was a nice hike. It was really fairly level, and you can kind of see by the line that we were just kind of skirting along the edge of the canyon, so we had a lot of nice views, and we were moving pretty quickly that day. So one night at Hance Creek, which had arsenic in it, right?
Correct.
So that was a seashell filter place. Anything else about Hance Creek? We didn't find any scorpions. We had the frogs.
That's all I can think of.
All right.
Hance Creek.
Okay.
The water wasn't. We had to filter our water for arsenic there. No?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Wednesday.
Wednesday, we hiked back on the East Tonto Trail. We headed north on it and eventually worked our way over to Hance Rapids. This hike was about 6.5 miles, and it was fairly easy in the first third of it, and probably the last third of it was pretty rough with some steep downhill climbs over boulders. But once we arrived at our beach camp, it was beautiful being right down on the Colorado River and the sandy beach.
Right at the rapids.
Right at the rapids, yes.
Yeah. It was really the part of that was hard was just getting down to the beach, and it doesn't really show on the map, but it was pretty hairy that last half a mile or so, just kind of climbing down to the rapids, and then finding a place where we could camp on the beach. And let's see, so we were at Hance Rapids for 2 days. Camped there 2 nights, right?
Mm-hmm. Wednesday and Thursday nights.
And Thursday was kind of our off day. It was hot. Thursday was a really hot day, and we did go out for a short day hike in the morning. You want to talk about where we went, Dave?
We took the Escalante route, and we went approximately 1 mile east towards the Papago Slide and Papago Wall area. This was just an exploration, and we found the trail to be quite difficult even before we got to the actual slide.
Which is just a big jumble of boulders and everything that is really blocking the trail. So the only way to continue on that Escalante route is to climb over the Papago Slide and down the wall on the other side.
Correct.
Which we chose not to do.
Yes.
So we turned around, we came back, and we spent the day at camp.
And we had lunch. We dabbled a little bit in the Colorado River, sat in the shore, and swam around a bit. A few people swam around a bit in the river.
There was a nice little beach not far from where we were camped, so that we could play in the water, which was really, really cold. We built. There was no shade. There was no shade at our beach campsite, so we spent some time building shelters with our tarps, which was fun.
They were very good shelters because the winds kicked in and just about blew them over, but they withstood the strong winds and kept us sheltered.
Beautiful sky at night. Nice full moon.
Mm-hmm.
Scorpion hunt. No scorpions. All right. So that brings us to Friday. And what were we doing? Friday we left Hance Rapids.
Yeah, Friday was our day to hike a long day.
It was a long day.
It's the day we were all looking forward to doing about an 8.4 mile hike back to Horseshoe Mesa. And we got a very early start in the morning, probably at
Around 5:30.
to avoid all the hot sun. And we got over the initial quarter mile or so up over the steep section and then worked our way pretty easily on the trail until we got all the way to Hance Creek, which is where we had camped 2 days previously, and we used Hance Creek as our little afternoon lunch break and watering hole. We took a rest there for a couple of hours and got our water filled up and decided we were going to finish up the last 1.5 miles or so up to Horseshoe Mesa.
That's when things got really interesting.
Yes.
So we had to go back. There's where we were going to be camping at Horseshoe Mesa. There was no water, so on the way we had to stop at Page Spring. That was after the mine, right? So does the mine? No,
Right before the mine.
Right before the mine. Okay, so Dave, you see where Page Spring is? It's a little bit further down, I guess.
There we go. That's the section. That whole area was steep. That point from Hance Creek up to Page Spring was extremely steep uphill with a lot of exposure. Hot sun. We were probably doing it around noontime.
with like
And-
little narrow sections of the trail where, you know, like there was rocks on one side and the other side was just crumbling away, and it was really scary. But we got there, we got our water, we filled up everything we had with water so that we would have enough, which meant that we were going out of there with really heavy packs. And there's that little section of the trail where there's a double D, which means, I guess, doubly difficult.
Yes.
And it was, we were carrying really heavy packs, lots of water, and this trail was just narrow and steep, and it went up and up and up. It was scary. That was probably the most frightening part of the entire
Yes.
trip.
A great deal of exposure and very narrow walkways, extremely narrow, and at points you had to hold on with arms, hands, and feet.
Yeah. And all uphill.
Yes.
And then along the way, we passed an old mine, and we stopped to examine that, along with some old artifacts that are laying around, and that was kind of fun and interesting. That was a little break, and then we kind of continued on to Horseshoe Mesa and our camp there.
And we finally hit Horseshoe Mesa. We were so relieved to have made it up over that difficult section without any casualties, and we were ecstatic. We just sat underneath the juniper tree and chilled out, and then worked our way on down to find a nice campsite.
This was our last night, and it was the only night that we stayed at an actual designated camp area. The rest of it was what they call at-large camping, which meant, you know, you camp wherever you want. But this actually had little sites, and there were a few other people there. But it was Friday night. It wasn't really busy. We thought it might be. There's an old miners' camp with an old cookhouse, which is really just stone walls at this point. So, you know, there were some things to explore. We looked for scorpions, didn't find them, and that was our final night. So Saturday morning, all we had to do was climb back, retrace our steps really back up the Grandview Trail. So this was all trail that we'd already hiked, 3 miles out, all uphill, which we thought might not be as hard, you know, since we'd gone uphill the whole previous day, but it was still pretty tough. It took us about 3 hours to climb back up to the rim.
But fortunately, we got a very early start, 6:30 in the morning, and we were able to hike in a lot of shade and nice cool winds, and we didn't really hit a lot of heat until maybe close to the top. So it went very well.
Yep, it was a good trip.
It was.